Welcome to the deep dive. So today we are taking a magnifying glass to really the absolute secret sauce of behavioral therapy.
Oh, yeah, it really is.
Right. We are looking at task list item C.2 from the Behavioral Intelligence Mara Sánchez materials, which is, of course, powered by Amethyst Therapy Services.
Definitely.
And today is focusing entirely on implementing procedures to establish and use conditioned reinforcers.
It's a huge one.
It is. But to start, I want you to just picture this scenario. So you are running an ABA session.
Okay, setting the scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're sitting there with your learner, and they just finished a truly, grueling puzzle.
We've all been there.
Right. It took immense effort, maybe some prompting, but they got there. And right after they put that last piece in, you hand them their absolute favorite toy truck.
The holy grail of toys.
Exactly. And their eyes light up, they grab it, they start rolling around the table with this just massive smile on their face.
Oh, it's the best feeling.
It is. You sit back, take a breath, and you think to yourself, great, I just reinforced that complex puzzle-completing behavior.
Mission accomplished, right?
Right. But did you? Because what happens when you look at the data graph the next day and you find out the client is actually, less likely to engage with that puzzle?
Oh, man, that exact scenario is one of the most common and, frankly, most insidious traps in our whole field.
It really is.
It catches new RBTs constantly. And honestly, it even trips up seasoned practitioners if they aren't, really relying on their data.
Because it feels so right in the moment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You assume that because the learner had a joyful reaction, because they eagerly engaged with the item, that learning occurred.
Right. The assumption is just that favorite automatically equals reinforcer.
Yes.
We see the smile, we see the engagement, and we check the mental box that we did our job.
Which is a fundamental misunderstanding of behavioral mechanics.
Yeah.
I mean, a favorite item is just a preference.
Pure.
Right. A reinforcer is defined entirely, 100%, by its future effect on behavior.
Right. The data.
If the behavior didn't maintain or increase in the future, it was not a reinforcer. I don't care how big the child smiled in the moment.
Wow. Yeah.
And this specific mistake is exactly why we see so many stalled acquisition programs. The therapist thinks they are providing reinforcement, but functionally, they are just handing out free access to preferred items.
Which is actually harmful to the goal.
Totally. It actually abolishes the motivation to work.
Which means we are dedicating this entire deep dive to fixing that disconnect. We are unpacking the actual mechanics of how completely neutral things in our environment, things that have absolutely no innate value, magically transform into powerful behavior builders.
It's basically magic. Well, behavioral magic.
Right, because if you understand how to manufacture that motivation, you unlock entirely new worlds for your clients.
And that is exactly why Domain C, which covers behavior acquisition, makes up such a massive portion of the RBT exam.
It's a huge chunk.
25% of the entire test. I mean, out of the 75 scored questions you're going to face, 19 of them are going to test your granular understanding of these acquisition principles.
That's practically a quarter of the exam.
Literally a quarter. But looking past the exam for a moment, the clinical reality is that we simply cannot rely on basic survival needs to teach complex skills forever.
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of early intervention gets bottlenecked. You start a program using biological imperatives, food, water, warmth.
Right, edibles.
Yeah, but if we only ever used a tiny piece of a cracker or a sip of juice to teach a client, we would hit a developmental wall incredibly fast.
How fast?
Not to mention the satiation aspect. I mean, you can only eat so many crackers before you just don't care about the puzzle anymore.
Precisely. We have to bridge the gap from those contrived, immediate, biologically necessary rewards to natural societal rewards.
Which is the whole point.
Exactly. The end goal of applied behavior analysis is not to have a learner dependent on a therapist handing them an M&M every time they say hello.
No one wants that.
The goal is independence. And true independence requires responding to the contingencies that already exist in the natural environment.
Like social stuff.
Yeah, things like a teacher's praise, a high five from a peer, a token economy in a classroom, or eventually, a paycheck.
Right. Though I've heard some pushback on this.
Oh, like what?
Well, I was talking to an RBT recently who brought up a very real clinical challenge. They had a client who only wanted highly specific snacks. Like gummy bears were the only thing that functioned as a reinforcer.
That happens a lot.
Yeah. And the therapist asks, if the edible works and it gets the client to complete their programs, is it really my job to force them to care about a high five or a little plastic chip?
Wow.
Uh,
Okay, yes.
yeah,
It is absolutely our job.
right.
Expanding a client's community of reinforcement is vital for their autonomy and their social inclusion. I mean, think about the sheer restrictiveness of that environment.
It's super limiting.
If a child only responds to edible reinforcement, how are they going to navigate a general education classroom?
They aren't.
Right. The teacher in a public school with 30 kids is not going to walk around handing out gummy bears for completing math sheets.
No way.
The available reinforcement in that setting is the teacher saying, "Great job, everyone," or maybe putting a sticker on a chart.
Or even looking ahead to adulthood. Navigating a workplace where the reinforcement is a direct deposit every 2 weeks.
Exactly.
You can't just hand a 25-year-old a piece of candy for filing a quarterly report and expect that to sustain 40 hours of labor.
I mean, I wouldn't mind candy, but no, it won't work. If we leave them dependent on primary unconditioned reinforcers, we are severely limiting their access to the wider community.
That's a great way to put it.
Supervising BCBAers expect RBTs to expertly pair neutral items with established reinforcers because that is the exact mechanism that expands the learner's world of motivation.
It opens doors.
Totally. If an RBT cannot execute that pairing process flawlessly, the client's progress is capped.
So when we talk about those primary unconditioned reinforcers, the Cooper text provides a really specific definition.
Of course it does.
Yeah, but I want to make sure we are translating this jargon properly so the concepts actually stick for you as you study. So the text states that a conditioned reinforcer is a previously neutral stimulus change that has acquired the capability to function as a reinforcer through stimulus pairing with one or more unconditioned reinforcers or conditioned reinforcers.
Two is a dense definition,
Super dense.
but every word matters. To understand the conditioned part, we first have to fully grasp the unconditioned part.
Okay, let's break that down.
Unconditioned reinforcers are innate. This is phylogeny. It refers to the evolutionary history of our species.
Like survival stuff.
Exactly. Food, water, oxygen, warmth. You do not have to teach a freezing person that a warm blanket is a good thing.
No pairing required.
Right, their biology already knows it.
Yep.
No learning history is required for that stimulus to function as a reinforcer.
Right, and the text also includes human touch as an unconditioned reinforcer, which I think sometimes surprises people.
It does.
They assume touch is something we, learn to like socially, but I was reading the 1996 Pelez Nogueras study on this from the materials, and the methodology is just fascinating.
Oh, that's a classic study.
Yeah. They were looking at infants, trying to isolate exactly what functions as a biological reinforcer before any complex social conditioning has taken place.
Because babies are basically a blank slate socially.
Exactly. So the researchers set up distinct environmental conditions to see what actually drove infant behavior.
Right.
In one condition, when the infant made eye contact, the adult would provide social attention. So smiling, cooing, talking gently.
Typical parent stuff.
Yeah. But in another condition, the adult provided that exact same social attention, but they also physically rubbed the infant's legs and feet.
And the data there is what's so cool.
It's incredibly stark. The babies in the touch condition emitted eye contact for significantly longer durations and smiled far more frequently compared to the attention-only condition.
Which leads to the profound conclusion that touch stimulation functions as a primary unconditioned reinforcer for infant behavior.
It's wild.
It really is.
Exactly.
It's built right into our biology. It's a phylogenetic reality.
Right.
We are wired to seek out physical contact for survival long before we understand what a smile or a word means.
That makes so much sense when you think about evolutionary biology. So, okay, we have our unconditioned reinforcer, the biological power source.
Right.
Now we need to create a conditioned one. This is ontogeny, right? The unique learning history of the individual.
Exactly. Ontogeny is your personal history.
So step by step, how does an RBT actually manufacture this in a clinic? We are taking something completely meaningless and engineering value into it.
It really is a form of behavioral engineering. First,
Right.
you have to identify a powerful existing reinforcer. You need a baseline of motivation.
You got to have a starting point.
Right. Let's say through a formal preference assessment and subsequent reinforcer assessment, we know it is an empirical fact that a specific brand of cracker functions as a reinforcer for this client.
Okay, we have our primary reinforcer, the cracker.
Next, we introduce a completely neutral stimulus.
Something boring.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's use a small blue plastic token. Right now, to this learner, that token is just Garbage.
It means nothing.
It has no value, no history. It's just background noise in the environment.
Okay, so we've got the cracker and the boring token.
Now comes the critical step, and this is stimulus pairing. This is where the actual conditioning happens.
The magic.
The magic. You present the neutral items, the blue token, at the exact same time, or just a fraction of a second before you deliver the cracker.
Token, then cracker.
Token, then cracker. Token,
Yeah.
then cracker.
Yeah.
You do this repeatedly, ensuring the learner is experiencing both stimuli in tight temporal proximity.
Okay, I want to pause on that phrase, temporal proximity, because I know timing is where a lot of implementation just falls apart in the real world.
Oh, it falls apart so often.
We're talking about a 0 to 3 second window, right?
The timing is absolutely paramount. The direct effect of reinforcement drops off incredibly quickly in the human brain.
It's that fast.
It's immediate. If you wait 4 or 5 seconds to deliver the token or the backup reinforcer, you are rolling the dice on what behavior you are actually strengthening.
Wow.
You are operating outside the bounds of immediate contiguity.
Let's unpack the why behind that constraint. I mean, why 3 seconds? Why not 10 seconds? What is actually happening neurologically or behaviorally in that gap?
Well, it comes down to the limits of working memory and the constant stream of behavior a human emits. I mean, behavior doesn't stop.
Right. We're always doing something.
Exactly. A child makes eye contact anyway. Let's say that's your target behavior. If you take 4 seconds to fumble in your pocket for the paired token, what did the child do in those 4 seconds?
I mean, they probably looked away.
Right. Maybe they looked away. Maybe they started tapping the table. Maybe they vocalized a sound.
Oh, I see.
Because consequences affect the behavior that occurs immediately prior to them. Your delayed token delivery just accidentally reinforced looking away and tapping the table.
You completely missed the eye contact.
You missed it entirely. And worse, you've now strengthened a competing behavior.
That is so frustrating.
This is why supervisors harp on timing. If you stretch that 0 to 3 second window, you shatter the stimulus control you're trying to build.
Okay, so if I'm doing this right and my timing is flawless, eventually that blue token has absorbed enough value through pairing that I don't even need the cracker anymore, right?
Right.
I can just hand them the token and their target behavior increases. Is that the final test?
That is the ultimate test. You fade out the primary reinforcer and test if the previously neutral item increases behavior on its own.
The moment of truth?
Yes. If the future frequency of the behavior increases when only the token is delivered, congratulations. You have successfully established a conditioned reinforcer.
That is so cool.
The token is no longer neutral. It has acquired value.
This whole process of taking meaningless plastic and giving it power, I mean, it's literally the foundation of our entire society when you zoom out.
Oh, absolutely.
Think about video games. Super Mario is the perfect visual analogy for this.
I love this analogy.
Right, you run around the game collecting these floating gold coins. Those coins are useless pixels.
Literally just code.
Yeah, you can't eat them, they won't keep you warm, they have no phylogenetic value at all.
But they are paired with an extra life.
Exactly, which functions as a massive backup reinforcer in the context of the game.
Yep.
And because the game rigorously and consistently pairs 100 of those meaningless coins with an extra life, players will spend hours risking virtual death, timing perfect jumps over pits of lava just to get one more pixelated coin.
It's brilliant. The game environment engineered the value of the coin through pairing.
And we do the exact same thing in the real world with fiat currency.
Well, the ultimate generalized conditioned reinforcer.
Right, a $100 bill. It's a dirty piece of cotton and linen blend. Inherently, it is completely neutral.
Completely.
You cannot eat it, and it provides terrible insulation in a blizzard.
Yet we obsess over it.
But I will gladly endure a 40-hour work week, sit in terrible commuter traffic, and attend boring meetings just to get my hands on those pieces of paper.
Because that paper has been paired with shelter, with food, with health care, and, with your Netflix subscription.
Right, all the good stuff.
Money is what we call a generalized conditioned reinforcer. It is incredibly powerful and highly resistant to satiation because it can be exchanged for an almost infinite variety of backup reinforcers.
That's a crucial distinction. The token in an ABA session is basically just a dollar bill for a 4-year-old.
That is exactly what it is. It's a localized economy.
Wow.
And that's why token economies are so uniquely effective. If a child only earns gummy bears for correct responses, they will eventually get full.
Right, satiation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Their establishing operation for food will diminish, satiation kicks in, and the motivation to work drops to 0.
They just don't care anymore.
But if they earn tokens that can be cashed in for a gummy bear, or 5 minutes on the iPad, or a walk outside, the token rarely loses its value because there is always some backup reinforcer they will want.
You are constantly appealing to whatever current state of deprivation they're in.
Yes.
If they aren't hungry, they probably want to play. The token covers both.
It's super versatile.
Let's look at how this precision looks in a clinic setting. I was reading about Karen Pryor's 1999 work, which is referenced in the Cooper text, specifically regarding clicker training.
Ah, clicker training. It's fascinating.
It is! This is a brilliant example of conditioned reinforcement in action.
Clicker training is an elegant solution to the exact timing issue we just discussed. It's a science-based system initially used heavily with marine mammals.
Because you can't exactly swim out and hand a dolphin a fish the exact millisecond. They execute a perfect mid-air flip.
Right. The temporal gap would be massive.
Hmm.
By the time you get the fish to them, they've swam in a circle and splashed you.
So you use sound to bridge the gap.
Exactly. You use a handheld device that makes a sharp, distinct mechanical click.
Okay.
Initially, you pair that click with the unconditioned reinforcer, which is the fish. Click, fish, click, fish.
It's just over and over.
Right. Soon, the sound of the click itself becomes a powerful conditioned reinforcer. Because sound travels almost instantly, the trainer can click the exact moment the desired behavior occurs, even if the dolphin is 20 feet in the air.
That is so smart.
The click bridges the temporal gap between the behavior and the eventual delivery of the primary reinforcer.
And we use this exact mechanism with humans, too. In a busy, noisy clinic, a specific clicker sound or even a distinct verbal marker like a sharp yes can cut right through the environmental noise.
It really does.
And it provides immediate reinforcement, even if the actual edible or toy takes a few seconds to retrieve from your pocket.
The verbal marker acts as a temporal bridge. It holds the behavior in place until the backup reinforcer arrives.
But what if you don't even need physical, repetitive pairing? This is the part of the source text that absolutely blew my mind. The 1975 Engelman study on verbal analog conditioning.
Oh, that is a profound study.
Up until now, we've been talking about physical temporal pairing, right? Handing a token alongside a cracker. But Engelman bypassed the physical pairing entirely.
Verbal analog conditioning is arguably one of the most powerful tools in a practitioner's toolkit, provided the learner has a sufficient verbal repertoire.
Right, they have to understand language.
Exactly. What Engelman did was essentially hack the pairing process using language and relational frames.
It's almost unsettling when you think about it. We can bypass actual experience entirely and just program a consequence into someone's head using a verbal rule.
It's kind of like Inception.
It is. The methodology in that study was so simple but profound. They took preschool kids who were already happily working for M&Ms.
Okay.
The researchers brought in these completely plain, boring pieces of yellow construction paper. Just paper. And they didn't do stimulus pairing. They didn't hand out paper and then an M&M. They just looked at the kids and gave them a verbal rule.
They established a verbal equivalence class.
Right. They said, these pieces of yellow paper are what big kids work for. Just words. And suddenly, many of these kids rejected the M&Ms. They started working extra hard, changing their behavior just to accumulate plain yellow paper.
It's incredible.
The value was established purely through a verbal rule. No one had to actually experience a primary reinforcer paired with it.
This highlights the incredible power of human verbal behavior. When a learner understands language, we can establish the value of a neutral stimulus simply by explaining its contingency.
Like giving instructions.
Exactly. A master carpenter tells an apprentice, if the table saw makes a high-pitched grinding noise, the motor is about to violently pick back the wood.
Ouch.
Right. The apprentice does not need to experience a piece of wood flying at their face for that high-pitched noise to instantly become a conditioned punisher.
Thank goodness for that.
The verbal rule did the pairing. The environment didn't have to cause injury to teach the lesson.
That is a staggering cognitive shortcut.
It really is.
But as powerful as all these tools are, tokens, clickers, verbal rules, RBTs make mistakes with them constantly.
All the time?
And the exams test these mistakes relentlessly. So let's look at how this is actually tested, because the test writers love to lay specific traps here.
They do. They know exactly where people get confused.
For instance, I was looking at a tricky mock question where an RBT reports to their supervisor. The RBT says, I used the client's favorite toy car to reinforce him after he finished his math worksheet, but today his math completion rate actually decreased.
Okay, classic scenario.
The question asks what went wrong.
I guarantee one of the distractor answers on that multiple choice question is something like the client satiated on the car, or that the car wasn't a strong enough preference.
Yes, that's exactly what it says.
The exam writers are trying to bait you into diagnosing the value of the toy rather than analyzing the behavioral principle.
Right. The distractors sound completely plausible if you aren't grounded in the definitions.
Totally.
But the real issue is that fundamental assumption we discussed in our hook, confusing preference with reinforcement.
On the exam, anytime you see a scenario where a preferred item is delivered, but the behavior decreases or stays the same, the answer always points back to the strict definition of reinforcement.
It's all about the data.
Exactly. A preference assessment, say, a multiple stimulus without replacement gives us a hierarchy of what the client chooses when given free access.
It's just a guess.
It gives us a hypothesis. It does not give us a reinforcer. A reinforcer is confirmed only by its effect on behavior.
So simple, yet so easily missed.
If the math completion decreased, the car did not function as a reinforcer for that specific behavior in that specific context, period.
Okay, here's another mock scenario that trips people up. A teacher writes in her session notes, "I reinforced Sarah today with praise after she shared her crayons." We hear this phrasing in clinics and schools all the time, but why is this technically incorrect in the rigorous language of applied behavior analysis?
This touches on a massive philosophical and procedural rule in the Cooper text. We reinforce behaviors, not people.
Right.
Reinforcing the person is a huge trap.
But why is that distinction so critical? I mean, it sounds like semantics. We know what the teacher meant.
It sounds like semantics, but it fundamentally shifts your clinical focus. If you think you are reinforcing Sarah, you start looking at global, generalized traits.
Like being a good girl.
Exactly. You lose the precision required for behavior analysis. You don't reinforce Sarah. You reinforce Sarah's specific behavior of sharing crayons.
I see.
While reinforcement obviously affects the whole person neurologically and emotionally, the procedural focus must always be on the distinct, observable behavior that occurred immediately before the consequence.
Otherwise, things get messy.
Very messy. If you lose sight of the specific behavior, your timing gets sloppy, and you start reinforcing the wrong things.
Which leads right back to our discussion on timing. There's a scenario on the exam where an RBT is trying to teach a learner to identify the color blue.
Okay.
The RBT says, "Touch blue." The learner touches the blue card. The RBT then says, "Good job, you touched blue. That's the right color. Excellent work." And then 5 seconds later, hands them the token. And the data shows the learner is not mastering the skill. What's the error?
The error is a combination of poor contiguity and what we call stuttering SDs, or just overly verbose praise that delays the actual conditioned reinforcer.
Too much talking.
Way too much talking. In those 5 seconds of the RBT talking, the learner might have looked out the window, tapped their foot, and touched a red card.
The window closed.
The token was delivered far too late to strengthen the original correct response of touching the blue card.
The praise essentially became a barrier to the reinforcement instead of a bridge.
Exactly. Excellent implementation requires precision. Deliver the token immediately, paired with concise, behavior-specific praise, that's blue, and hand the token simultaneously.
Short and sweet.
Exactly.
So there's another conceptual question I see pop up frequently. What is the fundamental difference between an unconditioned reinforcer and a conditioned reinforcer?
That's a good one.
The distractors usually try to confuse biological needs with psychological desires.
They love doing that. The core difference always hinges on learning history.
Phylogeny versus ontogeny.
Exactly. An unconditioned reinforcer is a product of phylogeny. It requires absolutely no learning history to effectively increase behavior.
Like oxygen.
Like oxygen. A conditioned reinforcer is a product of ontogeny. It requires a learning history specifically, that stimulus pairing process we detailed, to acquire its reinforcing properties.
So if it needs pairing, it's conditioned.
If the stimulus requires pairing to work, it's conditioned.
And finally, a question that tests the exact mechanics of token economies. Why are tokens and money so highly resistant to satiation compared to something like a food item?
The answer is that they function as generalized conditioned reinforcers.
Generalized being the keyword.
Right. This means they have been paired not just with one backup, but with multiple diverse backup reinforcers. Human motivation is always fluctuating based on establishing operations.
Like how hungry you are.
Right. If a learner just ate lunch, their motivation for snacks is 0. Satiation has occurred. But because the token can also be exchanged for toy time, or a break from work, or access to a preferred video, the token retains its value.
It's basically a wild card.
Exactly. The motivating operation for at least one of those backups is almost always present, which keeps the token highly resistant to satiation.
That flexibility is what makes a token economy so robust. Now, I want to pivot slightly and formally introduce our ethics minute.
Always important.
Because you cannot talk about implementing these procedures without rigorously defining the scope of practice. I mean, the BACB ethics code and the RBT ethics code are the absolute bedrock of everything we do.
They are non-negotiable, period.
So, for this specific task list item C.2, implementing procedures to establish conditioned reinforcers, the boundary of the RBT's scope of practice is very clear. It's right there in the verb.
Implement.
Implement.
Exactly. RBTs implement the procedures designed by the supervising BCBA.
They don't make a plan.
No. They do not design token economies from scratch. They do not alter reinforcement schedules on the fly because they feel like the client is struggling.
Which happens a lot.
It does. And they certainly do not independently decide to switch out backup reinforcers without the BCBA's explicit authorization.
Let's explore a very common hypothetical where those lines get blurred.
Okay.
Say I'm an RBT running a token economy, and I notice the client is completely bored with the backup reinforcers. The gummy bears aren't working, the iPad is boring them, but I happen to know they love a specific light-up toy.
I see where this is going.
Can I just run out to my car, grab a cool light-up toy I bought with my own money, and add it to the token board menu to help them out?
Ethically, no.
Even if it helps.
Ethically, no. And it's a common temptation because RBTs are compassionate. They want to see their clients succeed and be happy.
Of course.
But if you bring in outside items or unilaterally change the contingency, you are stepping way outside your scope of practice. You must report those observations regarding satiation to the BCBA.
It's the BCBA's call.
The BCBA has the analytical training to interpret that data, ensure the new item is actually safe and appropriate, and modify the behavior plan formally.
Bringing in personal items also blurs the lines of professional boundaries, right? It risks creating a dual relationship with the family.
It absolutely does. It moves you from a clinical implementer to a personal friend giving gifts, which completely compromises clinical objectivity.
That makes total sense.
But there's an even more serious ethical violation that happens around conditioned reinforcers, and it involves data manipulation.
Oh, this is a big one.
Let's say a BCBA is conducting a live observation of your session, and they note that your inter-observer agreement, your IOA, is terribly low because your reinforcement timing is consistently off.
You're nervous, you're fumbling.
Right. You are delivering tokens at the 5-second mark instead of within that golden 3-second window.
The pressure in that moment is intense. There is a massive temptation to just tweak your data sheet so it matches the BCBA's data.
Oh, yeah.
Or to round up your successes to make it look like the token is working better than it actually is.
And acting on that temptation is disastrous.
It's fraud.
The Amethyst materials are uncompromising on this point. Data alteration, whether it's backfilling missed trials at the end of the day, estimating numbers, rounding up, or tweaking, is fraud.
It's a huge deal.
It explicitly violates the RBT ethics code. If your timing was off and the behavior didn't occur, your data must reflect the flawed reality of that session.
Because falsifying the record compromises the BCBA's clinical decision-making.
It directly harms the client. If the BCBA looks at your fake data and thinks the token economy is working perfectly, they won't make the necessary changes to help the child.
They'll just keep the flawed plan.
Furthermore, because applied behavior analysis services are often billed to medical insurance based on this exact data, falsifying records can constitute insurance fraud.
Wow.
That carries civil fines up to hundreds of thousands of dollars and even criminal penalties. Data must be recorded exactly as observed, immediately, without exception.
That is a stark, vital reminder of the responsibility RBTs carry. The data is the voice of the client. You cannot silence it to protect your own ego during an observation.
Well said.
Speaking of observations, when a BCBA is actually sitting in the room conducting that competency assessment for task C.2, what are they specifically looking for? What separates an average RBT from an exceptional one?
The assessor is evaluating whether the task is performed in a competent, highly fluid manner.
Like it's second nature.
Exactly. An exceptional RBT doesn't have to pause the session to dig through a messy backpack for a token. Their environment is arranged flawlessly.
Preparation is key.
When the client emits the target behavior, the implementation is a seamless practice dance.
The neutral stimulus, the praise, and the backup are all delivered immediately.
Within that 0 to 3 second window, the pacing is natural but analytically precise.
And what about poor implementation?
Conversely, poor implementation is painfully obvious to a supervisor. It's clumsy. It's the RBT who asks the child to complete a task, the child complies, and the RBT stares at their data collection tablet for 5 seconds before wordlessly sliding a plastic chip across the table without making eye contact.
That sounds awful.
Or the implementation error that completely defeats the purpose of immediate contingency. Waiting until the end of a 10-minute instructional block and just handing the child a stack of 5 tokens all at once.
Oh, like, here you go, you earn these for working hard.
That completely destroys the functional relation. Handing out a pile of tokens at the end of an activity fails to pair the reinforcer with any specific response.
It's just free money at that point.
At best, it reinforces whatever behavior was happening right at that end moment, which might just be sitting quietly or looking at the clock. It certainly doesn't reinforce the difficult math problem they solved 8 minutes ago.
Right.
Your timing is your clinical superpower. If you master the 3-second window, you can shape almost anything. If you ignore it, you are shaping behaviors you never intended to.
I want to give our listeners a sticky way to remember these concepts. We all have so much information flying at us, especially when prepping for an exam. So here is a memory hack for conditioned reinforcers.
I love a good hack.
Think of the equation. N plus U equals C. Neutral plus unconditioned equals conditioned.
I really like that. N plus U equals C. It simplifies the entire stimulus pairing process into a formula.
And if you want a visual analogy to carry with you into your sessions, think of it like a smartphone battery.
Okay, let's hear it.
The unconditioned reinforcer is the wall outlet in your house. It has power naturally, it's built into the infrastructure, it doesn't need to learn how to have electricity.
Right, it's just there.
The conditioned reinforcer, your token, is your smartphone. On its own, a dead smartphone is just a neutral brick of glass and metal. It's useless.
Totally neutral.
It only gets power, it only acquires value if you physically plug it into the wall to pair it with that innate power source.
And that analogy raises an incredibly important question for every practitioner listening right now.
What's that?
Are you remembering to charge your tokens by pairing them with backups?
Oh, wow.
If you just hand out tokens day after day without ever allowing the client to exchange them for the unconditioned or established backup reinforcers, those tokens will lose their charge.
They just become useless plastic again.
They will die. The value will extinguish. And if the tokens die, your client's motivation dies right alongside them. You have to continually plug that phone into the wall to maintain the charge.
That is a perfect visualization. Keep your tokens charged.
Absolutely.
We have covered a massive amount of ground today, diving deep into the neurology, the behavioral mechanics, and the ethical realities of this process. Let's do a rapid review of the 5 key takeaways from this deep dive.
Okay. Takeaway number 1. Conditioned means learned, requiring an ontogenic history. Unconditioned means biological, based on our phylogenetic history.
Takeaway number 2. You create conditioned reinforcers through stimulus pairing, presenting a neutral stimulus in tight temporal proximity to an established reinforcer.
Takeaway number 3. A favorite item is merely a preference. It is not a reinforcer until empirical data proves that its contingent delivery actually increases the future frequency of a behavior.
Takeaway number 4. We reinforce behavior, we do not reinforce people. The clinical focus must always remain on the specific response.
And takeaway number 5. RBTs implement the pairing process. BCBAs design it. Stay strictly within your scope of practice and never, ever alter your data.
Listeners, if you want to master these concepts and absolutely crush your exam, I invite you to check out the Amethyst BCBA Mastery Program and the visual flashcards at amethysttherapyservices.com.
They're a fantastic resource.
The visual breakdowns they have are incredible for cementing these complex ideas. And please, share this deep dive with an RBT who is prepping for their exam or looking to level up their clinical skills.
The more deeply we understand the underlying mechanics of behavior, the better we can support our clients in reaching their ultimate goals of independence.
Before we sign off, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought.
Oh, okay.
We've spent this whole time talking about tokens and gummy bears for clients, but I want you to think about your own life right now. Think about a completely neutral stimulus in your daily environment. Maybe a specific notification chime on your phone, a little blue check mark next to a name on social media, or a specific green mermaid logo on a coffee cup.
Oh, the mermaid logo.
Right. Stripped of context, these are just meaningless sounds, pixels, and ink. But they have become massive conditioned reinforcers for you. It's so true.
You will change your behavior, You will interrupt a conversation with a loved one. You will spend extra money you don't have just to access them. Ask yourself, who did the pairing to create that value in your brain?
That's slightly terrifying.
And what behavior of yours are they currently controlling with it? Because just like that toy truck at the end of the puzzle, absolutely nothing is inherently a reinforcer until the environment makes it one. Keep analyzing, keep learning, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.